or being able as a developed country or developed country factory to buy emissions by providing better technology in developing countries, right? So there are kind of innovative ways in which I can let developing countries develop, manufacture, but doing it in a cleaner way. As a developed country, sometimes subsidizing that. So I think we have to think creatively as saying, okay, now that we realize it's a problem, let's cap everybody, is not going to resonate for many developing countries. But there are solutions that require collaboration at a global scale.
Okay, inherent to what you presented today was the idea that growth is good. Is growth always good?
It's a great question, because growth has gotten a bad name recently, right? That you can grow in very unequal ways, and for very poor countries, growth is very important, because first of all, if you don't have growth, you don't have anything to distribute, right? You redistribute poverty otherwise. So you need to expand the pie, and if you have people making more money, and these kind of models where I'm suggesting, where people are creating more money by creating products and values and things that the world wants to buy, those create business models that allow the people creating it, the people at the bottom, to get high and rising salaries. So at some point, many of the problems of the poor, healthcare, lack of education, can be solved with money, right? So growth brings incomes to the poorest of the poor. Now, after a certain level, say $5,000 of income, you have to think of other things too, right? To deal with the inclusive growth and the fact that economies are becoming more divergent. And then you talk about tax codes and things that we're discussing in our countries. But I think for developing countries and the poorest of the poor, without growth, we can't start the conversation.
Okay, could you give me in a nutshell, if it's possible, what the summary of what you presented today was?
I think the summary would be this concept of know-how, of expertise, that countries grow, societies prosper, and this goes at the very micro level, but by adding capabilities, by adding expertise, by creating diversity of knowledge, right? And it's societies through organizations, through firms, that bring that diversity of knowledge together to allow us to make more complex things, which drives growth.
So what would be the magic formula if there were 5 things a poor country could do to improve its position in the world and for its people? What are those 5 things?
Well, unfortunately, we are all about not best practices, and it's hard to find the 5 things, because one of the things that we say and that we try to map in this theory of the product space and economic complexity that was created by Ricardo Hausman and others in the center, is that every path for every country is different. Right? I worked with a lot of developing countries who everybody wanted to bring the biotech industry or the next, sexy industry that had allowed, Ireland to succeed, the BPOs or the call centers. And they wasted a lot of money trying to pursue the dream that had worked for Singapore or for Ireland 20 years ago, right? But the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, each country is going to have a very different path. And what I like about these maps is that it allows you to understand, where are you now? What are the capabilities that you have as a country? And what is your specific path toward development? And I think that kind of context-specific solutions in growth, but in most other things, health, education, are the things that are likely to bring progress.
This is a question from my assistant here. Are developing countries poor because they have a lot of children, or do they have a lot of children because they're poor?
That is a great question. There's something called kind of the paradox of Malthus, right? That the more you develop, the more children you have, because you have more money. But then something happened, right, in the demography of countries, where the richer they became, they started to have less children. And that that openness allows countries to actually have an acceleration of growth. So a demographic change is important in the growth equation. So because as people start having more children, and that has happened to many economies as they grow and become more prosperous, you can invest more in the fewer children that you have, and the possibilities of those children having a better outcome is higher. So it goes both ways.